Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Amity University. Amity University is a research and innovation-driven university. Today, we are 12 universities in India with 16 global campuses, 28 schools and preschools, following the ideals and principles of our founder president, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan sir, and led by the dynamic visionary, our chancellor, Dr. Atul Chauhan sir. Well, the series of webinars is hosted by Amity Legal Aid and Literacy Committee, sponsored by National Institute of Social Defense, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India. With me is the convener of this webinar series, Dr. Nitin Sharma. And it's a proud privilege that today we have an elite panel amongst us today from diverse forum of education and advocacy. Well, today's topic is going to be very interesting, primarily because it deals with the international human rights commitments and the Transgender Persons Act 2019. Well, I know there is much to be talked about, and we will proceed slowly and slowly. But before we begin with this event, we will invoke the blessings of the goddess. And to invoke the blessings of the goddess, I will request Vijay Agarwal, who's our student and member of Amity Legal Aid and Literacy Committee, to share the Saraswati Vandana video. And after seeking the blessings of goddess, we will proceed further. Over to you, Vijay.
Om Bhur Bhurva Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat Dhiyo Yo Naha Prachodayat. He Sharide Ma, He Sharide Ma, Ajnanita se hame tar de Ma. He Sharide Ma, He Sharide Ma, Ajnanita se hame tar de Ma. तो श्वेत वर्णी कमल पे विराजे, हाथों में वीणा मुकुट सर पे साजे। तो श्वेत वर्णी कमल पे विराजे, हाथों में वीणा मुकुट सर पे साजे। मन से हमारे मिटा दे अंधेरे, हमको उजालों का संसार दे माँ। हे शारदे माँ, हे शारदे माँ, अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ। अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ। अज्ञानता से हमें तार दे माँ।
Thank you so much. As we invoke the blessings of the goddess, with prayers going up and the blessings come down, we feel so privileged, proud and honored to have collaborated with National Institute of Social Defense, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment in hosting the webinar series on Transgender Persons Act 2019 and the Rules 2020. Up the panel today, we have with us our eminent speakers for the day. We have with us Dr. Monica Narang ma'am, who's Associate Professor and Coordinator of PG Diploma in Human Rights and Duties Education, the Law School, University of Jammu. We have with us Dr. Vijay Avana, Advocate, Supreme Court of India. We have with us Dr. Shubha Vatt, Senior Assistant Professor, the Law School, University of Jammu. We have with us Dr. Rajat Banerjee, Assistant Professor, Amity Law School, Noida. We have with us Ms. Shalja Khosla, Assistant Professor, Amity Law School, Noida, amongst us today. Well, much will be deliberated today upon the aspect of international human rights commitments in the context of the Transgender Persons Act of 2019. And together with that, we also have to make the people aware about what are the welfare schemes that are provided by the ministry to begin with you and to take ahead the panel discussion, I would like to just briefly tell you that there's a national portal for the transgender persons, and that developed on 25th of September 2020, and that this portal helps the transgender persons in applying for a certificate and identity card through digital mode from anywhere in the country. What is important is identity, because identity and individuality is our own. I am what I am, so accept me as I am. To take the panel discussion further, I will now request the convener of this webinar series, Dr. Nitin Sharma sir, to present his address. Over to you, sir.
So thank you so much, ma'am. And most importantly, welcome to all the esteemed panelists for today's webinar. And ma'am has already highlighted the fact what is the need for these webinars and how long we have such association with the National Institute of Social Defense and Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. And as all of us are very well aware of the fact that the human rights jurisprudence regarding this particular problem issue, once upon a time that most of the people were having some deliberations upon the problems faced by the transgender community. Now, with the passage of time through after NALSA judgment and through the constant evolving human rights jurisprudence, we can see there are some good things that has been happened in our country also. And as a part of our discussion series, likewise, we have bifurcated the various problems, issues, and various remedial measures related to the transgender population into different aspects, different sub-themes rather. And accordingly, we have dissected the issues into 10 sub-themes. And most importantly, we have discussed the area of inclusive education, the health rights. Then we have discussed the major issues like right to self-identification, as well as the non-discrimination provisions under the Transgender Act. And even though we have also highlighted the main aspects related to the grievance redressal mechanism, which is an important aspect of this particular legislation. And as ma'am has already told us about the national portal for the transgender population, this is also an important aspect of the grievance redressal mechanism. So now we are towards the end of this webinar series, and today, as ma'am has already pointed out, it's an important issue and important topic of our discussion. Reason being, this particular issue is common to, and it evokes the interest of all the people across the world, be it an academician, be it a person from any social background, political background, be it a person from literature, and be it a simple learner. So I think ma'am has already pointed out that today we have with us a galaxy of like speakers belonging to diverse backgrounds, practitioners as well as academicians. So we are hopeful that we will be able to learn new things, and the speakers are definitely going to add new perspectives. And with the suggestions and possible inputs from the speakers, definitely we are going to do something good for this community. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks a lot, ma'am. Over to you, ma'am, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nitin Sharma sir. Beautiful words, and as we would talk about the international humanitarian commitments, things are to be discussed on a very global forum. Well, everybody talks about the Act of 2019. Let me give you a little glimpse also about the rules of 2020. The Transgender Persons Rules 2020 talks about a provision for welfare measures. It talks about education, social security, health of the transgenders as per Rule 10, and also it talks about sensitization of the institutions and establishments of appropriate authority, including the teachers. It talks about the faculty in schools and colleges, and also it talks about the sensitization program for the complaint officers as per Rule 10, Clause 7. Now, there is also a provision as per Rule 11 that there is a provision for the formulation of a comprehensive policy for transgender persons as per Rule 11, and also Clause 2, and also as per Rule 11, Clause 5, there is a provision for setting up a transgender protection cell under the charge of the district magistrate. Now, we collaborated with the National Institute of Social Defense, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and we are very glad, honored, and feel proud that we now have a totally dedicated cell for the transgender protection cell under the aegis of Amity Legal Aid and Literacy Committee, and our satellite office is stationed at gate number 2A of the university premises at Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Noida. You can note down our number, everybody who's joining us and watching us live on YouTube. The number of the transgender protection cell is 012043928807. I repeat the number 012043928807. Well, up the panel now we have with us a very decorated educationist, a very dear and beloved Dr. Monica Narang ma'am, who's Associate Professor and Coordinator of PG Diploma in Human Rights and Duties Education at the Law School, University of Jammu. Dr. Monica Narang ma'am has always supported Amity Legal Aid and Literacy Committee in all its different endeavors, and right from the time of COVID, ma'am has been associated with us. Ma'am, it's a proud privilege that you are with us in the webinar series. It's over to you, respected Dr. Monica Narang ma'am, for your address. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Sumitra ma'am. It's really a pleasure for me to be here and to present my views on this issue. First of all, I would like to congratulate the organizing team for taking initiatives for this matter, because this is going to be a very sensitive issue, and many of the viewpoints, many of the deliberations have already been discussed in this webinar, because as my student Nitin Sharma was already sharing this point that I'm audible, na, Sumitra? Okay. Yes, many of the issues have been discussed, because this is a transgender, I would not say it's a problem. Otherwise, it starts right from the time when they are born, or sometimes when they are not identified, or when they are identified afterwards. Or many of the intricacies concerning gender, like they are trapped in wrong body. I've been hearing one of the sessions. Then dual identity, Nalsa judgment, there should be separate washrooms, unemployment, many of the issues that and even the act. And Sumitra has already been discussing about this Transgender Persons Act 2019. But my focus will be on this area. As per my topic is the requirement for recognition of the rights of transgender in international human rights law. So my focus will be on the international human rights realm. As human rights are considered to be the best creation of the God, who has bestowed upon them full developed cognitive abilities to understand and to draw rationality, civil society strives to provide all human beings a life full of dignity and tries to make people to feel the need to be more accepting of non-conforming gender so that society can grow and flourish. Right to life should be available to each and every person, including non-conforming gender, because it is fundamental to his or her existence, without which life or a dignified existence is not possible, which includes all those prerequisites to make their life worth living. A cursory look at the development of transgender rights indicates that the world has made significant progress in addressing the recognition of gender identity rights. These regional and domestic developments do not, however, recompensate the fact that transgender persons still suffer some of the most pervasive forms of violence and discrimination. They are those people who usually feel that they are with the sex which they came into existence does not match with their gender identity. For example, the individual who is born female may be identified as a male, which will be a trans man, or a person male may be identified as a female or a trans woman. Thus, this category of people is neither male nor female, but have the traits of both. They are also known by the various local names like Hijras, Kinnars, Shiv Shaktis, Aradhis, etc. Today, transgender's term has become so wide. I would like to excuse myself because I am having a viral and there is some problem with my voice. My voice is clear? Okay. they are also known by different names. And today, transgender term has become so wide that anyone whose identity and behavior falls outside the conventional gender norms is now regarded as the transgender. This community was existed in almost all the nation, society, and culture from the ancient timing, but they were considered not more than an animal or a chattel. And they were often subjected to humiliation, assault, torture, and they were deprived of their basic human rights. Due to the non-recognition of transgenders community in the society, they are denied of the right to equality under Article 14 and right to life under Article 21 of the Constitution of India. It is true that the apex court of the country, time and again, always protected this vulnerable section of the society, but the unfavorable mindset of the people and the societal approach towards this community is a serious concern, and it needs to be corrected and protected. Transgenders have always been an integral part of Indian community. This community is well recognized right from the beginning, but they have, we find their say discussions and the presence right from the Hindu mythology and the religious textbooks. So I think this aspect have already been discussed in the previous sessions. This community is not only deprived of their basic human right, but throughout the world. However, now civil society is raising its voice in support of this community, and accordingly, we see some changes in the status of this community at international level also. Few countries allow them to lead their life according to their own choices and give them right to sexual orientation. Argentina is the first country in the world that made laws on transgender rights. In 2012, Argentina's Senate unanimously approved the gender identity law, making sex change surgery a legal right. The procedure is included in both private and public healthcare plans. In Denmark, the Council of Europe adopted a resolution calling on member states to guarantee the rights of the transgender people to obtain official documents with their chosen status without requiring other procedures such as sterilization, surgery, or the hormone therapy. 4 years later, Denmark became the first European country to allow people to apply for a legal gender change and obtain a new gender status on their identification card with a simple declaration. In USA, in 2016, discrimination based on this gender identity has been banned. The rule applies to discrimination in health settings that receive federal financial assistance. Every health program administered by the Department of Health and Human Services and every health program, the rule which states it is unlawful for an insurance carrier to have or implement a categorical coverage exclusion or limitation for all health services related to gender transition. In Germany, the Federal Social Court ruled in 1987 that gender reassignment measures in the case of transsexuality are subject to payment. The cost for gender modifying or gender adjusting treatments, they are only covered by the health insurances once the medical necessity of the respective treatment has been determined in each individual case. So some of the countries, they have legalized their status and they have focused on their this gender orientation. Now we can focus on the Yogyakarta principles also, which identifies the right to non-discrimination regardless of gender identity and sexual orientation. Like everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. Then the persons of diverse sexual orientation and gender identities shall enjoy legal capacity in all aspects of life. Each person's self-defined sexual orientation and gender identity is integral to their personality and is one of the most basic aspects of self-determination, dignity, and freedom. It is also included there that no one shall be forced to undergo medical procedures, including sex reassignment surgery, sterilization, or hormonal therapy as a requirement for legal recognition of their gender identity. So the statement on human rights is regard to sexual orientation, and the Yogyakarta principles are revolutionary as the first international comprehensive enumeration of LGBT plus the specific universal human rights standards. Because the human rights are rooted in the culture and values of every nation of the world. After the First World War, the provisions of League of Nations Charter, they came into force. The covenant of the League, they reflected also human rights. So the human rights were the first of all, they were recognized by the General Assembly of the United Nations in 1948 in Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and which have also elucidated the UN Charter provisions and defined expressly certain human rights and fundamental freedoms which need to be protected. So according to, and I have heard that Universal Declaration of Human Rights is also discussed many a times in the previous sessions also. So I won't discuss this in length. And it states, according to UDHR, all are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to the equal protection of the law. So the underlying message in the Charter, UN Charter, and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights is the acknowledgement that human rights are there for the individuals and have a definite linkage of the human development. So these documents, they focus on the common vision with a common purpose. The aim of human rights is the empowerment of the people of each individual. So thus there has to be the universal recognition that these human rights are rights which belong to every individual. Further, there is the adoption of the International Covenant on the Civil and Political Rights and the International Covenant on Economic, Social, and the Cultural Rights, which also contains provisions regarding the transgenders. So similarly, the United Nations has passed certain covenants and the resolutions that recognize that transgender persons should be guaranteed the right to recognition along with the full range of rights and freedoms by the state, that they suffer aggravated forms of violence and they are the targets of extrajudicial killings because of their gender identity and require special protection against torture. However, all these resolutions and principles, they remain just that the declarations and the statements of a commitment to addressing LGBTQ and the rights in general, but holding little statutory or authoritative value. The International Human Rights Conventions that do create obligations for the state, they make no explicit mention of this LGBTQ, and those identities have been subsequently interpreted in the original text by the United Nations Human Rights Commission through the journal comments. While this increases the scope of protections offered by the conventions, the evolution of jurisprudence is that has been very slow and creates limited specific obligations. According to Article 26 of International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, that prohibits discrimination and gives equal protection to all persons before the law, has been interpreted to include the transgender persons under the category of sex. Then Article 9 of this International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights has interpreted the right to liberty is available to everyone, which includes the persons of this transgender gender, and whereas the Article 12 of International Covenant on Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights have been interpreted to recognize the right to health of the transgender persons as a vulnerable group that requires positive state protections. Most of these interpretations, they were made in response to the petitions made under optional individual complaint mechanisms of the respective human rights treaties or a voluntary reference to the trans issues. The International Covenant on Economic Social Rights Committee has referred transgender rights, but consistently cites the lack of comprehensive studies and information to make any conclusive recommendations. In 2017, the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights released a statement insisting that LGBT persons are protected under the United Nations Charter or the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but they did not require the creation of that specific obligations. Thus, the emergence of the stress at the international and the national levels on the regulation of the rights of the transgender is a significant step in accordance, according to them, the recognition that they are the human beings equal in dignity, social status, and economic and political powers to a normal human being. Thus, the need of the hour, which is reflected in all the attempts, is to educate them, because education is considered to be the key for liberation from the old shackles paralyzing the body, mind, and soul. Furthermore, there is an urgent need to provide them regular employment in public and private sectors so as to provide them with the basis for their own survival. The employer needs to ensure that there is no exploitation of the transgenders or humiliation to them during the course of their employment. Such an initiative will not only boost them economically, but will uplift them psychologically. So this would be at the national as well as the international level. Those transgenders who are underage or overage, they should be given special protection through welfare schemes in order to protect them from emotional, physical, and the economical exploitations. So there is an ardent need to provide them effective health care in order to maintain their health and to rebut the belief that they are the carriers of the various diseases. It's a myth. In those cases where the transgenders are found to have some HIV, AIDS, or something else, they should be given proper healthcare treatment and psychological counseling. Furthermore, they have been considered of carrying their culture, traditions right from the ancient times, which needs to be recognized and which should be protected and nurtured by the government. So proper schemes and policies should be there. So there is need to provide them with the various facilities like housing and all, and to the best of the possibilities, they should be housed together in the colonies so that they feel safe, and this initiative phase till the proper it should continue till their societal acceptance. So such measures will be helpful in the denial or discontinuance of their unfair treatment, which should be provided in the society. So my perspective was that no doubt we have an act in India, Transgender Persons Act 2019, but at the international level also, where we are availing so many documents, provisions, we have the different conventions. So these people should be given proper protection. They should be given proper care, not only at the national level, but right from the international. Since India is a party to so many treaties and the international documents. So thanks for listening to me patiently and giving me time and bearing with me. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Monica ma'am. Listening to you is always an intellectual treat, and every time we learn so much new from you. And also, you're a source of inspiration for so many girls here. They keep on telling me, ma'am, Monica ma'am ne ye bataya, wo bataya. So it's like, ma'am, yeah, thank you so much, ma'am. There will be a question and answer round also in a short while. Thank you, ma'am. Well, everybody, as Monica ma'am has very beautifully spoken in the international perspective, and that is also the topic for today's webinar, I would like to highlight Section 9 of the rules of transgender rules of 2020. There is an obligation of appropriate governments to take steps to secure full and effective participation of gender persons and their inclusion in society. This is as per Section 8 of the rules. Now, as per Section 9 of the rules, there is obligations of establishment and non-discrimination in employment. Now, the very question is, if a transgender person gets a job in some other country, how are we going to solve this problem? Would Section 9 or Section 8 of the rules of the transgender persons, Rules 2020, would that signify and curate it? I wonder if it would be, because internationally things are very different. And is there any common law which can talk about it? I really wonder. So having said so, it's time now that I invite another elite panelist on the panel. We have with us a very young and dynamic advocate, Shri Vijay Avanaji, who is the founder and partner at Central Juris, and his area of focus has been corporate, commercial litigation, indirect taxation, customs, goods and services tax. He is on the panel of so many committees, including that of Noida Development Authority, Greater Noida Development Authority, Ghaziabad Development Authority, Bisham Developers Private Limited, Garvit Hospitality and Ifracon Private Limited. Although his area of practice has been civil and commercial litigation, he is also an arbitrator. He's also a PhD from IFTM and also a very, very active member of Adhivakta Parishad at Honorable Supreme Court of India. So it's now over to Mr. Vijay Avanaji for your address. Vijay Avanaji.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you for your kind words. A very good afternoon to everyone. My respect and regard to all the teachers and professors, all the panelists sharing this platform with me, and the organizers of this webinar, my friends and dear students. This particular topic is very sensitive and it's very important in today arena. And in respect of this, I just like to discuss some points in respect of the Transgender Persons Act 2019. We have already seen since our childhood that we have seen that we have taught that there are only two kind of gender, that is based on very false premise that there are only two genders in the world, that is male and female. And I think it's which are very immutably linked to the biological sex assigned at birth. We have seen such persons have been historically suffered from violence and discrimination based on such stereotypes. Therefore, I think the protection of the rights of this LGBTQ persons is also a, gender justice. All persons, including GTY persons, must be able to exercise such rights like right to freedom of speech and expression, access to information in the same condition as we or the rest of the population of this world or this country uh, use. But unfortunately, in India or in other countries, we have seen that they are often banned from the public discourse because of their sexual orientation, gender identity, and expression. Here, particularly, I want to discuss one report of OHCHR, that is Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, which says that there are limitations on the right of freedom of expression, association, and peaceful assembly that are based on sexual orientation on gender identity of an individual, which violate rights guaranteed by Article 19 and 20 of UDHR and Articles 19, 21, and 22 of ICCPCR. These particular rights are already existing since 1948, but and recently in India, but last 10 years we have seen such developments like the rights of the transgender peoples have been protected. Why such things took so much time in protecting such rights? We have to discuss this particular issue. Until now, TG communities have been barred from participating fully in social and cultural life. In respect, we can see in economic sector, politics, and decision-making processes, there are very limited percentage of sharing such platforms by such transgender persons. But we should be very thankful to the Honorable Supreme Court of this country, which had recently took a significant step in the year of 2014 when it issued a landmark decision recognizing a transgender people as a third gender. The Supreme Court acknowledged the legal and constitutional rights of transgender people as a third gender in the National Legal Service Authority decision. It is one of the landmark judgment by which many things in after this judgment came into form. As we are discussing Transgender Act, this particular act was the result after this particular judgment in which this particular rights have been identified by the Supreme Court. The decision mostly focuses on the legal acknowledgement of the transgender community based on the Yogya Karta principle definition. Earlier, one of the panelists have discussed this particular principle in detail and defined the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation. The Supreme Court has also ordered the government to regard transgender people as a socially and educationally undeserved group because they are suffering from centuries. And this is the time that the Supreme Court has asked the government to take into consideration such violence against them. And such groups are entitled to quotas in education institutions and public positions. And I think in the wake of this NALSA judgment, only the Indian Parliament enacted this particular Act 2019, that is Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019. And it forbids discrimination on the basis of denial, cessation, or unjust treatment toward the transgender people in education institutions, employment, and other situations. As per every institution, as per the Act, it is the obligation and duty of every institution to appoint a complaint officer to handle the complaints about these standards being violated. The Act also says that the government should take steps to ensure the transgender people have access to adequate healthcare. There should be HIV surveillance centers. There should be a sex reassignment operations must be set up separately in such institutions. I think one of the most important clause in respect to transgender persons, which was laid down in this particular act, was to get a certificate of identity to a transgender person, and he has to file a request before the district magistrate of uh, of the state, wherever they are living. The certificate will be issued by the DM without any physical or medical examination being required. This certificate will be identity which will provide a serve as an identification proof and will be documented in official documents. And the act also direct the central government to set up a council for transgender person, a national council under the supervision of the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, and the chairperson of this advisory group will be the member of Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Now I want to discuss the offenses which are included in this particular act. The offenses which we have seen from many years, such as forced or bonded labor, refusal to utilize public facilities, sexual, physical, mental, and verbal economic abuse, expulsion from their home or community, and very important in respect of this offenses, there one penalty under the act which might range from 2 to 6 months in prison if there is any such violation act has been done to the transgender person. But with such positive enactment, there are some lacunas in this particular act which I want to lay down, which I want to speak here. This act, however, poses significant challenges, such as the term transgender is assumed to have a narrow definition. Like intersex and transgender are phrases that are used interchangeably in this act. So such narrow definition should all affecting in defining such term transgender. In reality, it has made it mandatory for transgender people to obtain evidence of identity from the district magistrate. This itself shows that they need a particular authority who give them an identity. Like other gender, like men and women, we get identity since our birth, but such transgender people has to get an identity from district magistrate itself. I think it's itself is an a wrong thing in respect of getting identity certificate from DM. And this goes against the notion of self-identification. Furthermore, the act contains no provision for recourse. If the DM refuses to deliver the certificate, the public will have no recourse. The transgender people have no recourse in this as per this particular act. The transgender person undergoes sex change surgery. They must apply if the person who is transgender and he want to go under sex change surgery, they have to apply to a DM for updated certificate. Only after the DM is satisfied with that appropriateness of the certificate granted by the CMO, then only he will give that particular certificate. So updated certificate. This itself makes worse for the transgender persons who are mostly illiterate, who are mostly violated in this particular society. I think this particular steps need to be taken into consideration. And one more lacunas I have noted that transgender offender can only be sentenced to 2 years in jail, no matter how terrible the offense is. On the other side, the act is diluted version of the IPC. The IPC stipulates a minimum punishment of 7% in prison for rape and other things. With this particular act, this act is mostly collaborated or in consonance with will work in consonance with the Indian Constitution. Otherwise, the rights of the transgender cannot be protected. The Indian state policy we have seen previously also, and I've discussed that they have only recognized two genders earlier. But after this particular judgment of now, the Supreme Court, they have taken into consideration third gender. The deprived third gender of their rights as Indian citizens. Earlier the constitution was unable to provide such rights to transgender people because it was only discussing recognizing two genders, that is male and female. So their fundamental rights under Article 14, 15, 16, and 21 have been stripped away from them. It is only after this, as I have discussed in 2014 judgment, the first time the transgender rights were revived, with the Supreme Court emphasizing the need of protecting and maintaining transgender rights under the Indian Constitution principles of 14, 15, Article 16, and Article 21 in the respect of transgender people. And I want to discuss one more judgment of the Supreme Court and it's also a recent landmark judgment in which that is the case name is Navdesh Singh Johar versus Union of India. The center issue was in this particular case whether the constitutional validity of Section 375 of Indian Penal Code is constitutional or unconstitutional. In this case, the court repealed, stating that the homosexuality is a variant of sexuality, not an aberration. The court went on to say that discrimination based on sexual orientation is a violation of right to equality, right to privacy, and since sexual orientation is an interesting aspect of self-identity, and that denying the following right is a violation of right to life. After this particular act and after this particular judgment and this particular act, the central government came up with transgender persons rules 202, which to recognize the identity of transgenders and prohibit discrimination in the fields of education, employment, healthcare, holding or disposing of property, holding public or private office, and access to and use of public service and to use the public services and benefits. Such rules and acts are very important, and I think they should be taken into consideration in a positive way to help such persons and to get those particular rights in the society. Recently, one council was also constructed by the government, that is National Council for Transgender Persons, and that is in respect of to exercise the powers conferred by the Section 16 of Transgender Person Act 2019. The central government constituted this council, and the Union Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment is the chairperson ex officio, and Union Minister of State for Social Justice and Empowerment is the vice chairperson of the council. Such rules and councils are benefiting such transgender person, as we have seen in recent, and I have seen in my practice also that such rules are benefiting such persons in our society. One very important umbrella scheme by the central government, that is SMILE. Its name is Support for Marginalized Individuals for Livelihood and Enterprise. The Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment launched in this particular umbrella scheme, in which this umbrella scheme will cover several comprehensive measures, and including the welfare measures for the transgender community, for persons who are engaged in the act of begging, with a focus extensively on rehabilitation, provisions for medical facilities, counseling, and education skill development. With the and it will be done in the support of governments, state governments, union territories, local urban bodies, voluntary organizations, community-based organizations, and institutions, and others. One most important thing the central government, in collaboration with after this particular judgment, has done is national portal. They have made one national portal for transgender persons, which has been launched by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. And our moderator also has, ma'am has discussed this particular point, that in this particular portal, that any transgender applicant can obtain a certificate of identity and identity card without any physical interface with the office of issue. But I think what I've realized in one particular cases which I am handling, that these portals sometimes don't work, and they have to reach to the officer physically, and where it becomes very problematic for them to get such particular certificates. So in this particular area also, the government or the such institutions has to look into. The transgender certificate and identity card are nationally recognized and are provided by Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. This certificate is mandatory, like we have discussed the SMILE scheme earlier. The certificate is mandatory document to avail the welfare measures which are provided under this particular umbrella scheme, that is SMILE. So There is one more thing I like to discuss in particular respect of the education. Recently, the new national education policy 2020 has created one gender inclusion fund will under the new policy to build the nation capacity to provide equitable quality education for all girls as well as transgender students. So this kind of steps like creating such fund in respect of under the provisions of national education policy is very important and beneficial to the all the girls and as well as the transgender students. But we should, and I think we should still ask the question whether such legal developments and policies in respect of transgender people either whether such developments have helped them or not, because still there are many violations of rights which need to be restored to transgender, such as in respect of education. They are denied education. They have not allowed to get admission in mostly in reputed institutions. They are neglected even after enactment of the act. Even in employment, they are facing discrimination at the workplace, and to protect them from discrimination, this particular act states that no government or private entity can discriminate against transgender people in matter of employment. But I think I have seen many cases which come to us in which such issues has been taken into consideration, in which in respect of that to protect such rights we have filed many writs in Delhi High Court and Supreme Court where such right can be protected, because it is what I believe that from last 10 years I'm in this profession. We think or any other profession, it's a duty of such professionals to uh, look into consideration such violations which are happening against such persons. I want to discuss some examples of such violations. uh, in one particular case, the case name is Nangai versus the Superintendent of Police. In this, the petitioner applied for position as a female police constable, uh, and the SP in Karur district issued her an appointment order also. But when she went into for a medical test as part of her training, on the basis of that medical report, it came. It was determined that she was a transsexual. The SP afterwards ordered her to resign from her position as a lady constable. But the High Court, the Honorable High Court, held that the petitioner right to choose a different gender identity as a third gender in the future. As a third gender in the future, it's that person right. And it was upheld by the Honorable High Court based on the medical declaration and the impugned order of the termination from service issued by the Superintendent of Police of Karur district, and that particular order of that particular SP was set aside. So such uh, uh, there are many examples where still we can realize that people are facing such issues. In respect of health sector, I have personally seen that during COVID pandemic, uh, these transgender persons were suffering, and they were not allowed to get a bed get a bed in a hospital. The transfusion was not allowed to them. The oxygen cylinders were not provided to do them. But if there are I think the such welfare umbrella schemes, if they will not be in a place, they will not able to survive. But due to such schemes provided by the government and the judgments which are laid down by the Supreme Court, they were able to get a little bit of services. So we have to see that whether such sectors can be uh, such sectors respect them and provide such services to them. I want to discuss some examples, some extraordinary examples in which the central committees are doing very well also. Like there are extraordinary examples of such transgender peoples. uh, I want to discuss some, like with this legal development in society slowly moving towards more trans inclusivity. There are many examples such as one Nartaki Nataraj, a trans woman who is a renowned Bharatanatyam dancer from Tamil Nadu, and 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 she is the first transgender person to be confirmed with the prestigious Padma Shri award in the 2019, and I think it's happening after this particular judgment, when the such rights have been enacted through this particular act. I want to discuss one more person name here, Dr. Aksa Sheikh. Uh, and she is right now a doctor of community medicine and associate professor at Hamdard Institute, Medical Science and Research, Delhi. She is only transgender in India who is specialist in community medicine. One Vihan Pithambar, a trans man expert, and presently he is an expert committee member of National Council for Transgender Persons. So such positive examples are also in front of us, which we have seen after such legal developments and policies have been enacted. There are many transgenders which are elected as councillors, MLAs in different states in India. Recently, we have seen in Delhi one councillor has been appointed through public. So we can see that there are some extraordinary examples with positive things in respect of transgender taking place. So with this, I just want to say that therefore, with the in future, I want to say there is a way forward that therefore, with the legal recognition, political support, policy support, and transgender community being identified, the movement for inclusion and acceptance of transgender persons has received a strong backing in India after such legal developments. Further, it is the responsibility. Further, it is the responsibility of each individual like us or other professionals or other people in the society at all macro levels to create a gender inclusive environment, because such environment has to be created around them at their households, at workplaces and other institutions. I think it's the family of the transgender has to accept them, then only they will uh, flourish. With more awareness and empathy and a welcoming attitude, we can pave the way for a country in a rainbow colors, where we respect, support, and celebrate the engagement, expression, and well-being of all the members of the LGBT community. I just want to say that we have marched to a stage where transgenders are in a position to compete with other transgenders in every walk of life. I have discussed like 3 examples of such persons. All they need is the right opportunity to showcase their skills. And I strongly believe, I myself strongly believe that the presence of such persons in different areas of employment, especially as judges or lawyers or teachers or professors or in other professions, they will improve the system and they will bring a different and much needed perspective to India. With this, I conclude by remembering the word of Sri Swami Vivekananda ji, by quoting like he said, that everything is within you, and with that, and I want to quote this to the transgenders to get them more strength and more power. Like Swami Vivekananda ji said, that everything is within you, and with that you can do anything and achieve everything. And I think it's time that every person of this country, society, accept them and let them do what they ever want to do, because it's their life, it's their identity. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for having me. Thank you for the opportunity. If there is any question, please let me. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Avana. You've talked about so many diverse aspects of the act, and it's also important that all of us, we understand this right from the core of our hearts, because just 3 days back, I was there at the ministry and I was talking to a couple of transgenders. They said that कि मैम मैं transgender हूँ, अगर मेरा rape हो जाएगा तो मैं क्या करूंगी, क्या पुलिस वाला मेरी FIR दर्ज करेगा? They have such questions. So how can they be made so inclusive that they do not feel alienated from the mainstream of the society? That is a very imperative question, and in that, Advocate Avana, I think we will take your help in that. And we now have a totally dedicated transgender protection rights cell. I will request you to be on the panel of that cell. It will be a pleasure to have you on board, and also a little bit of international perspective to what you said is about the local recognition of gender identity. And
Yes.
that was there in the year 2018 when what was that? The independent experts in the October 2018 report to the United Nations General Assembly that examined the process of abandoning the classification of certain forms of gender as pathologies. And it's surprising to say that they had trans community in that. And because that report was to promote the respect for gender recognition as a component of identity. It took a lot of time to address the various grievances. So now,
Okay.
as India goes on the global forum with G20's presidency, and as Prime Minister Modi says that it has to be one earth, one family, one future, we got to make the trans community very, very inclusive. So thank you, Advocate Avana. I think Nitin sir has a perspective to add. Nitin sir.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So very
Thank
beautifully, sir, very beautifully you have like highlighted the main aspects of this issue, and likewise you have like traversed the way the transgender issues and the problems we have seen, and the journey it has traversed over the years. And likewise you have
Yes.
stated like the keeping in view the international perspective as well as the national perspective, as ma'am has already pointed out. We need to see like nowadays we used to denote them as third gender. So
Yeah.
as per the your presentation, likewise you said like said this thing that we need to give them priority, and I was there was an article written by some international scholar that we need not to designate them as third gender. They are the first gender, and
Yeah.
this is just because of the reason that it is all due to the preconceived notions,
Yeah.
and as well as the biased attitude of the society. And that's why we tried to, and rather we are trying also, and we discussed, we have chosen this particular theme, that is the international human rights commitments. And as far as your good self is concerned, you have also pointed out the number of socio-cultural rights, the rights about their inclusion, marginalization, and the non-discrimination provisions. Sir, I want to add this thing only, that we have already discussed these issues as a part of the Transgender Act. So, in order
Okay.
to properly comprehend, and in order to truly understand the intention and the essence and the spirit of this legislation, we have tried to discuss this issue on a different scale, and it is being supported by majority of the faculty members like Mr. Rupinder sir, Harshita ma'am, and Garima ma'am is also with us, and Dr. Rajat Banerjee sir is also there. So all the faculties primarily with the working for international human rights, in international human rights area. So everybody was of the view that we need to have discussion on this particular issue from an expert panel, and that too from academicians as well as a practitioner. And we are happy to inform every attendee of this webinar that we are privileged enough that sir has taken his valuable time to be with us and share his expertise. Thank you so much, sir. Highly
Thank you
thank
so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Indeed,
Thank you.
Advocate Avana, it's a pleasure having you. And I also invite you to be on board of the transgender protections.
Definitely, ma'am. Definitely, ma'am. I just want to add one more thing that I told Nitin sir also yesterday that I have one more webinar to attend at ISIL. Uh, with your permission, may I take your leave, ma'am?
Yes, sir, Advocate Avana, you can leave. And if there are any questions specifically for you, I will email it to you.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah, definitely, ma'am.
Thank you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good day. Thank you for the
So continuing with the webinar now, it's very important for everybody who's attending this webinar to understand certain aspects of the awareness programs which are conducted by the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, together with National Institute of Social Defense and Amity Legal Aid and Literacy Committee. So this is the second event that we have collaborated with the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. The first was one-day offline sensitization workshop, and it was very well received by everybody. This is the second project that we are doing, which is conducting 10 webinars on Transgender Persons Act 2019 and Rules 2020. And we are now upcoming with more such workshops and sensitization programs. However, I would like all of you to note that for more sensitization and awareness programs, please log on to socialjustice.nic.in, transgender.dosje.gov.in, nisd.gov.in, and I'll keep updating about what Amity Legal Aid and Literacy Committees, transgender Protection Rights Cell is going to perform. Thank you so much, everybody. And also note down our number, which you can call up anytime. That is 0120-439-2807. Well, coming up next in the panel, we have with us none other than our very dear and respected Dr. Shubha Vats ma'am, who's from the Law School at Jammu University. Ma'am's much work has been on gender identities, and ma'am has been contributing towards the society and the nation through her research works. It is with much honor and delight that I would now request Madam Dr. Shubha Vats to present her address. Over to you, respected ma'am. Can you hear me, ma'am? Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, we can see you. Ma'am, you're on mute.
Now am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, perfect, ma'am.
So good evening, everyone. Till now you were listening the perspective of law, but I am a person of literature. So I will quote a life narrative of a transgender who attained his identity not only on social level, but also as a transgender. It is Manobi Bandyopadhyay, who is a principal at a college in West Bengal. So let me start my paper. Every society has some individuals who do not fit in the culture's dominant roles, that is male or female. And transgenders are such people who have been recognized in many cultures and societies from antiquity until the present day. In Asian countries have centuries old accounts of the existence of gender variants who in present times are labeled as transgender. India is no exception. In India, persons with a variety of transgender related identities, cultures, or experiences exist. Hijra is a term used in South Asia, specifically in India and Pakistan, referring to male to female transgender individuals. In different areas of India, transgender people are known as Kothis, Aravnis, Jogappas, Shiv Shaktis, Kinnars, etc. Hijras do not have reproduction capacity as either men or women. They are neither men nor women and are consequently recognized as third gender. Members of the third gender, if we go by the cultural history of India, they have played a very prominent role. In medieval India, Hijras played a significant role in the royal courts of the Mughal emperors and some Hindu rulers, where they had been the custodians of harems. Their descents from grace started in the 19th century during the British colonial rule, when the Criminal Tribe Act of 1871 categorized the entire transgender community as criminals who were addicted to committing serious crimes. They were arrested for dressing in women's clothing or dancing or playing music in public places and for indulging in gay sex. But after independence, the law was revoked in 1949, but mistrust of the transgender community continued. Even today, they remain socially excluded, living on the fringes of the society, harassed by the police and abused by the public. Most of them make a living by singing and dancing at the weddings or celebrating childbirth, while many have moved to begging and prostitution. Literature has always been seen as a herald of change for its ability to make readers think and reflect. For years, the issue of LGBT continued to be deemed as a sensitive one. Literature as a platform of expression has never shied away from deliberating on the taboo topics. It is because of the persistent efforts of the artists and the writers that we are able to accept and comprehend new concepts and change with the changing times. It has been an easy course, particularly for those who decided to make themselves heard at a time when topics such as sex and sexuality itself were considered to be taboo topics. Over the years, we have come to see the depiction of protagonists and not just minor characters which fall within LGBTQ category. So I'm coming to my life narrative that I have taken. It is Dr. Manobi Upadhyay, who was born to a middle class family in Naikheti, Kolkata in 1964. She is the youngest child in her family and has two sisters. She was earlier named as Somnath Banerjee. She has completed her MA from Jadavpur University, and she is the first transgender professor in West Bengal and the first transgender to complete PhD in 2006. In 1995, she published the first Bengali transgender magazine, Obo Manav, that means subhuman. She has written two books, Ontahin Ontrin Prostikovoreki, and that means endless bondage, a bestseller, and third gender in Bengali literature, and a gift of goddess Lakshmi in 2017. And a gift of goddess Lakshmi is the biography of Manobi Upadhyay, which she has written in collaboration with Jhimli Mukherjee. With unflinching honesty and deep understanding, Manobi tells the moving story of her transformation from a man to woman, but about how she continued to pursue her academics despite the severe upheavals and went on to become the first transgender principal of Girls' College in West Bengal. And in doing so, she didn't just define her own identity as transgender, but also inspired her whole community. So I'm coming to the life narrative. As we know that she became the first transgender principal at Krishna Nagar Women's College in West Bengal. The state was appreciated for the progressive decision to uplift the suppressed trans community. And Bandyopadhyay was the first who got full education. And she has said to her community, I'm quoting her original words, education, if we understand, all of our problems will be solved. The plot of the biography follows a transgender woman who fights the myth that transgender people are strange, repulsive beings that are probably criminals and worthy of contempt. Even though she was born transgender, Manobi sees herself as a woman trapped in man's body. Despite her humiliation, Manobi tries to accept herself as who she is. Through the influence of education, she was able to change the trajectory of her life by gaining self acceptance and social acceptance. A year before she was appointed principal, the Supreme Court issued a landmark decision granting third gender status to transgender people if they so desired and ordering governments to safeguard the community by giving them equal opportunities following years of indifference and discrimination. Bandyopadhyay is now a member of West Bengal Transgender Development Board. Bandyopadhyay's socially odd status was only augmented by her academic accomplishments, in which she defied gender norms. She refused to join any Hijra Gharana and continued to live with her parents despite their inability to assist her because of societal pressure, and was subjected to exploitative relationships as well as psychological trauma from her colleagues and fellow human beings. Bandyopadhyay's life is a complicated story in several aspects. From the mid-1990s onwards, Bandyopadhyay published Abumanav, a magazine that dealt with transgender issues only, in which she has highlighted the issues of the transgenders, the trauma and the frustration that they face. The fact that transgenderism was already being debated disproves the commonly held idea that millennials are the first generation to question gender and sexuality norms. Through the narratives of Jagdish, who is Bandyopadhyay's friend, we learn that some segment of Bihar's society are more acceptable to this transgenders. The biographies section on Jagdish emphasizes Bandyopadhyay's heteronormative perspective on sex and marriage. Additionally, the biography includes a list of transgender individuals' accounts of being bullied and discriminated against. She discusses her battle with the state's higher education department, which denied her promotion due to the discrepancy between the names on her pre-transition academic certificates and those on her PhD certificates. So this life narrative or memoir, A Gift of Goddess Lakshmi, depicts the extraordinary courageous struggle of a transgender woman to develop her identity and to attain new heights, not only on social level but also on moral level too, for the other transgenders, those who may get inspiration from her for their upliftment. The core theme of Manobi's biography is her conflict with her gender identity. So now I will conclude that if given a chance, if they are treated as human beings, and they should be provided with all their fundamental rights and human rights. And it is the basic right to get education. If they are educated, they can not only attain their identity, but they will live with dignity and equality. Thank you. So mine is over. Sumitra ji.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shubha. I am Garima Vadwa, taking over from Sumitra ma'am now.
Okay,
I
good
think I'm
evening.
audible now.
Yes, you
Thank
are
you
on.
very much. You gave a beautiful memoir of this example is something which I think all of us should go back and read upon. And it is one of the brilliant examples of how somebody fought the education system and has achieved a status which will be an example for everybody else to follow, to look upon. And the best part is instead of just discussing various aspects, which were law-based aspects, you gave a live example to which everybody could relate to. So thank you very much for enlightening us on this
Thank you.
aspect. Now I would like to call upon Dr. Rajat Banerjee.
Good evening, one and all present here. It's a wonderful opportunity. Good evening, Garima Madam, and all the esteemed panelists and the participants present here. It is really a wonderful opportunity to create a body of jurisprudence governing transgenders. And since the last couple of weeks, we have been actually hearing people from different and hearing different perspectives, the social science perspective, the legal perspective, the managerial perspective, the administrative perspective. And today's topic is dedicated towards understanding the transgenders' rights vis-a-vis the human rights, international human rights commitments. Now, I believe some of the erstwhile panelists have already deliberated on the general outlines that we have in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, as well as the International Covenant of Civil and Political Rights. So these are, we also have the Torture Convention. But rather than focusing on what we have, we will focus on what we do not have. What we do not have to effectuate transgenders' rights. And in order to do that, I believe actually yesterday and a couple of days back, also I was actually trying to look at how to sort of somehow put things in a way that why is something working and why is something not working. And I find that if we refer to the human rights framework, so I think it is apt to divide the framework in two traditional lines, or in two methodological lines rather. One I would divide it as an orthodox framework, with the focus is, of course, on the natural law, as well as the positive law, which in the orthodox framework is generally dedicated to understand the natural law approach and the positive law approach. So we look at human rights from the point of, from invoking natural law, we look at human rights from the point of view of morality and ethics, and how human rights are shaped by the natural environment. Now we are referring to the orthodox framework, and I thought it apt to understand the human rights discourse vis-a-vis the transgender rights from the point of view of two frameworks, the orthodox framework and the unorthodox framework. The orthodox framework, as I had referred to, is actually a framework that relies upon the natural law approach and the positive law approach. So looking at the human rights, especially from a legal perspective, and from the perspective of from sometimes from the perspective of positive law, and sometimes from the perspective of natural law. Now, the positive law approach would always say that human rights instruments are those that the instruments are the sources of the human rights, whereas the natural law would say, approach would say that it goes beyond the traditional instruments. Now, if we invoke the unorthodox approach to human rights, which possibly provides an answer to the present human rights discourse governing transgender rights, if we look at it, the unorthodox framework is actually, we can divide the unorthodox framework into two segments: the vertical approach and the horizontal approach. So the vertical approach in the unorthodox framework, it is like the human rights. Of course, it concerns human rights as well as the social sciences, and it obligates states to respect the rights of individuals. However, what is conspicuously missing in the vertical approach is that it does not actually sort of delve into the obligations that are bequeathed on private individuals or on transnational corporations and the like. Now, moving further, and for a long time, in the broader context of the unorthodox framework, we have been following the vertical approach, and I believe we still follow the vertical approach. And so there are not too many obligations that are bequeathed on even the non-state actors, as I had indicated, and the transnational corporations, the multinational corporations, the private individuals, the private bodies, and the other private institutions. Now, moving further, possibly an answer to the transgender rights in the context of international human rights laws may be found in the horizontal approach. And had it not been, I believe there was some discourse that developed in 2003, when the Human Rights Council was a human rights commission. And at that point, there were deliberations about how to bestow duties on all. So the rights jurisprudence would not automatically work without taking into consideration not only the rights of the private actors and the transnational corporations, or the non-state actors, or even the individuals at large, but also those people who would otherwise, but also on the, but also stressing on the obligations part. So the horizontal approach, which is not even 2 decades now, was adopted by the Human Rights Commission. However, it has possibly lost steam, and and moving further, if you look at the international approach to human rights vis-a-vis the transgender rights, and if you invoke other approaches, for example, not classifying it as a vertical or a horizontal, as an orthodox or an unorthodox, if we look at it from the normativity point of view, I mean to say, even if we invoke the normative approach, which says that the rights tend to promote participation, inclusion, non-discrimination, accountability, and rule of law, or the semantic approach, which says that the rights are fundamentally rooted in individual freedoms, or even the Marxist approach, which says that the rights are not universal and they are determined by a class of people who has control over the means of production, distribution, and redistribution, or even the pragmatic approach, which means that the rights must have practical relevance and must be beneficial to a large section of the society, or even the inclusive approach, which says that rights must include the seemingly excluded persons, or even the feminist approach that rights must endorse gender inequality, endorse gender equality. I'm sorry. If we take a bundle of approaches together, the point that wherein we are lacking is in the of course in the context of international human rights law is a broad consensus. To the best of my knowledge, there was a General Assembly resolution, or Human Rights Council resolution, which was adopted in 2016, and although it was passed by a very negligible margin, but the horizontal approach to human rights, obligating people, obligating nation states, so especially creating erga omnes obligations all throughout, it received a jerk, and the Human Rights Council is still to find out an amicable solution to the discourse on human rights, especially governing the LGBTQ community, and which also includes the transgenders. Moving further, now, what is the recourse? What is the remedy? Is it because we do not at an international plane, apart from some of the instruments which are already known, which are there in the public, which we all know, which are there in public international law, especially the UDHR, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, all the 30 articles, somehow they promote or tend to promote universal equality and fraternity and freedom, and ICCPR and the Torture Convention. So we have a plethora of conventions guiding general rights. Now, the quintessential question that may be invoked here is that is it the right time that we have an overarching convention governing the transgender jurisprudence in the world? So, because actually, if I'm not incorrect, the number of transgenders people across the world, if I'm referring to the numbers, I'm not referring to the type of transgenders, I'm only referring to the numbers here. It skews so many of the countries, I believe so, that they do not even maintain a register of third genders, and subsequently their rights and obligations would generally come into within the rights of either the males or females. The points that I'm trying to raise is that, is it the right time that the international community, I mean to say the General Assembly, which can do so in consultation with the Human Rights Council, is it the right time to have a gender neutral law? Is it the right time to, or even to have an exclusive law governing transgenders? I mean to say a transgender convention or something of that sort. It remains to be seen, because in the battle between exclusivity and inclusivity, the tension always remains, and the universal principles in human rights, whether it is construed from the point of view of positivism or from the point of view of natural law, they fail to include somehow many of the excluded groups, communities, and many of those who are otherwise not included. So the point is, shall the UN agencies, shall the council take a separate stand with reference to creating an array of rights and bequeathing an array of obligations on individuals, on transnational corporations, on social groups, as well as, of course, on the state. So with this, I leave it on to the panelists, as well as to the people to the participants of this webinar series, to decide accordingly that whether I do not think that we are anywhere close to a consensus either. So of course, we in India, we have taken that stride. We are moving that extra mile, or trying to move that extra mile. But whether the same is there transpiring in the international discourses is a critical question, which I believe the panelists and the participants who are present today would be better equipped to answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Rajat sir. I think you beautifully brought out the fact that it's whether it should be a part of inclusivity or exclusivity, but the focus should come on doing good for the transgenders. That should be the ultimate aim, which the international community should come together and focus towards. So thank you very much for giving your views and enlightening us with a different perspective. Now I would like to call upon Dr. Our next speaker, Ms. Shalja Khosla, to come and share her views on the same subject.
I think I'm audible and visible.
Yes, ma'am, you are. And for both the speakers, that is, we would take upon the questions once Ms. Khosla is done with her presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Garima ma'am. Thank you, Rupinder Singh sir and Harshita ma'am, today as being the moderators. Kindly accept my most profound and extensive gratitude to Dr. Sumitra Singh and Dr. Neetna Sharma. Thank you so much. AMT Legal Cell and AMT Legal Committee here. Again, bringing to the forefront, to the center of attention, not just law and policies, but also the awareness of man, woman, and non-binary here. So the topic that we have been taking for the past 2 weeks in this colloquial has been transgender, right? Sorry, pardon my voice. I'm suffering from very high fever, but then topic is something I want to speak on. So I'm here now. If there is any question at the end of the colloquial, please, and particularly addressed to me, I would love to take it, and any information or anything from the side of students or faculties or anybody else. Now, this is an intersectionality, not just law and politics, but from fiction, from culture, from academics, from everywhere. That's why we have writers, authors, advocates, and academicians here, right? Now, my topic today that I have chosen is international legal instruments and transgender persons, right? Now, international human rights and transgender, and the topic and this awareness that is being built by the anti-legal cell. I can trace it. I was just reading Yogyakarta principles, and clause C and clause D, particularly clause C states that building awareness and knowledge in the public discourse among the transgender and their rights, and protecting them against any torture, inhuman or cruel degrading treatment. So I think anti-legal aid committee cell has very abundantly, profoundly, and with a huge sensitization is handling this Yogyakarta principles and various human rights instruments that have been developed since 2016, developing intersectionality between human rights and transgender persons. Right now, as far as international law is there, I will take two things here. First is customs or customary source of international law, as second is conventions, treaties, and all the written form of international law. Now, as far as the customary international law is being concerned here, as my co-esteemed colleague Dr. Rajat Banerjee has been pointing out, a natural law school can be traced to the fountain of building of the recognition and space that all persons occupy as they're part of the earth. Right now, as far as the customary source of law is concerned in the international domain, India, Greece, Rome, and few other civilizations, particularly India, there are replete examples from Ramayana and particularly Mahabharata. We all know here and there, right? During the war, pre-war and post-war, there have been, and when even you read Mahabharata, you would find the cases that transgender persons, the persons who are in the body of a man or a woman, but they do not conform to what the nature has been given, the sex that they have been assigned from their origin, from their birth, and they cross and they trans to the other domain, which could either be a male, so trans males, trans females, transvestites, transqueer gender, right? They are those people, right? That have been found, that are there. You read Upanishads, you read Manusmriti, there have been written acknowledgements that there are persons who are, though in the body of a particular sex from the time of a birth, but their gender identity and expression, how they feel and how they represent to the world, to the society out, is different. And then they want to cross or transfer to the area where they can uh, openly, with confidence, with recognition, without any fear, without any protection needed from society or from law. They can assert themselves, right? So there are situations in ancient jurisprudence in India, similarly in other civilizations also, right? And that in India or in other countries is the beginning of the natural law school. It's not just developed from the 17th century, when the French Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen and American independence and American Constitution have came up. That was accepted, though in the European world, that is a Eurocentric approach to the human rights, but there is also a third world approach to the human rights, which says that human rights have always been there. If you read Rig Veda, right, or if you just open up the first page, the Rig Veda would tell you that the mankind or the humankind is one. All are interlinked with one to the other soul, and that is why spirit, respect to the spirit, respect to the soul, and it does not matter male or female or any other gender, non-binary or any other constitutionality or jurisdiction. The respect for mankind, or the one, and interlinking with the whole universe. If one is not justified or being harmed or tortured, then the whole universe suffers, an interconnectivity between all the people, right? So that's what the Rig Veda tells. There are Upanishads, Mandukya Upanishad particularly, Isavasya Upanishad particularly, right? A few initial Upanishads which have clearly told that there is no, they even don't say man or a female or a woman or a, they say person, right? And then when they come in 1945 and 1948, and when the natural law school was adopted by the human rights discourse in international law, and the organization that was born, United Nations organization, and before that, Dr. Monica ma'am has also clearly pointed out, League of Nations was there, the covenant of League of Nations. The League of Nations have only reflected in a very narrow and very limited phraseology that all persons are free and equal, and there shall be a universal respect for everyone, and the problems of the world shall be resolved by non-violence. And they stop it there. But United Nations organization, which took it from League of Nations in 1945, in the post-Second World War, in the preamble and in the Article 1, which are the purposes of the United Nations, Article 1, that all persons, again persons, so the persons might be to the United Nations or to the European world is coming into discourse, into public arena in 1945 and 1948 with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, with the one Universal International Human Rights Treaty, right, declaration. But to the India, it was not new. Persons, as I said, have been, you will find persons or the humankind mentioned. The word itself is there in Rig Veda and Upanishads, right? So India already has that seeds and that fertile soil where we have been into respect to the everybody, right? And then in 2014, if you come to the current world, again the Supreme Court reiterating that all persons are equal. No person, because of their gender identity and sexual orientation, shall be subjected to any kind of discrimination, right? So what you get is recognition and space, number one, assertion, number two, protection. Protection from the law, from the policy making, from legislature, executive, and the judiciary, right? But you will not be needing protection if everybody has that space, inhabits the earth equally, respectfully, with dignity, right? But the issue of protection comes only when you would find out that the certain people, certain categories are not respected, or the space that they were inhabiting or they belong to it has been shrinking. And even in India, that has happened in the Middle Ages. India was not an exception, right? But as we come to the modern times, right, and India did adopt the Eurocentric approach to the human rights of the mankind after the French Declaration of Rights of Men and Citizen, and the positivist school of law started writing J.S. Mill in 1790, John Stuart Mill, the student of John Austin and Jeremy Bentham, had already on his book on liberty. And this book is not written from a lawyer or from an academics teacher. This book is a journal what J.S. Mill has thought of the persons, of all the people. He has talked about the case for suffragette, the right of women to vote, to assert. He has talked about the other people. He has talked about the men, right? And as far as the European civilization is concerned, even to them, the natural law school, or including everybody, not just transgenders, but everybody, anybody if left out of that category, has been into since 1215, since Magna Carta has been born, right? And then United Nations Organization and Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Moving, it was in 2016. There has been, as far as customary law is concerned, there are also repellent examples, millions from all the nations, including India, no exception, as I said, from Germany to Malaysia to New Zealand to Australia, even to the millions of cases of discrimination caused on sexual identity, discrimination along with the cruel and the treatment that are being given to the people who are non-binary, right? Torture in schools, in colleges, separated, right? You do not belong to the mainstream, but you should be separated. So Board of Brown versus Board of Education is a very good case here. But why to be separated when you belong to the same earth, when you belong to the same humankind, right? So that was the work that United Nations thought it is deemed to take up. Because if you want to have human rights for all, And if you want to fulfill the agenda of Article 1 of the United Nations Organization, you will want to done away with any obstacle to human rights of anybody, including any other category of persons that are there. So it was International Commission of Jurists number 1. It was International Committee of Human Rights. Number 2, it was Commission on Human Rights in 1948. And then in 2005, Human Rights Council, which replaced the Commission on Human Rights. Human Rights Council, along with all other commissions and bodies of United Nations. Human Rights Council has done a large network of work, and Yogakarta principles and what NASA judgment, I was reading Supreme Court was again and again reaffirming what Human Rights Council have done since 2006, when the Yogakarta principles were developed in November to the implementation and application of sexual identity and gender persons, right? And the principle 10 was added to Yogakarta in 2017, right? Where people of transgender should be free in their assertion of their rights, free from any torture at any space, whether it is schools, colleges, hospitals, universities. And if they want to change their gender, if they want to trans and adopt their gender, what they associate, their sex, what they associate, then they should be allowed to do so, right? That was the principle 10, and creating awareness and knowledge. And that is what is Amity Legal Committee has been doing for the past more than 15 days, right? There are 3 resolutions here, which I would like to highlight. Human Rights Council, it was 2017, 2016 resolution number 32, then again 2019 resolution number 41, and 2022 resolution number 50, which states that any kind of cruelty, any kind of a criminalization should be done away against the transgender persons on the ground of sexual identity and the gender expression, just because they are not binary, just because they are not what the nature have given to them, and their feelings and emotions or their sentiments have them to belong to some other gender or sex, then they should be allowed to do so. Identity and individuality is individual. It is the individual right. It cannot be collectively defined, but it can be collectively upheld. It can be collectively and plurally available to all the people of the community of transgender. That is what Human Rights Council have been saying since 2005, after it just got being into operationalized. Apart from the mainstream, the mega international United Nations work, we also have the regional agreements, which we tend to not be aware of or overlook. We have Inter-Commission of America. Then we have the African Convention on the Human Rights. We have European Convention on Human Rights, Council of Europe, which have been in a very big way. There are ample amount of examples from 2004 in Sweden, Switzerland, Lithuania, Latvia, Germany, France, where people are coming to the doorsteps of the judiciary to assert that despite whatever the sex they have been at their nature, they should have a choice, and we should not take the choice. The other collective and plural majority or mainstream community should not take away the right of them. Here the majority and minority is also being into foreplay, right? So that should not be taken away. There are international cases from Germany, United Kingdom, from America, whether Bessinger versus Bessinger, R versus Tan, then R versus Harris, funeral homes, then in New Zealand, Australia, Germany, Malaysia. There are customary law that has been developing since 2005, right? Where the people are coming to the national system, national framework for asserting their rights from the policymakers, from the society, and they should not be criminalized. I remember this quotation from Antonio Guterres, right? He said that so long there has been criminalization on the basis of sexual identity and gender identity, the people of the world will not feel safe, and the human rights will not fulfill its objective stated in 1945. So I have covered the international instruments. I have covered the regional agreements also. Thank you again so much, Dr. Neetan, Dr. Sumitra Singh, Dr. Aditya Tomar, Joint Hand, and Dr. Shefali Raizada. Thank you, Garima ma'am. If there are any questions addressed to me, I would love to take.
If there are any questions, they can be addressed to ma'am.
I have something to say, sort of an observation, that when you are referring to when the reference is made to the regional human rights framework, so what form of a framework do you think is relevant to the discourse governing transgender people?
Is that a question or an observation? You said you have.
This is a part question and a part observation, because actually at the regional levels we have, of course, we have some forms of cooperation, but regional human rights instruments are somehow nothing but a replica of the universal instruments, the UDHR or the ICCPR or the ICSCPR. So what form of a regional instrument is maybe relevant in governing the discourse on transgender rights? This is also I wanted to know, because I am oblivious to this fact.
Yeah, got that, Dr. Rajat Banerjee. And as had been taken up by Shalja ma'am, in the international parlance, we also have to see what is the level of the development of the country, whether a developed state or a developing country. For example, when we talk about Nepal, the trans people can register themselves in the category of others. Whereas in India also we say others, but then we say it as the third gender. Okay, so we have to recognize this. And similarly, like United Nations has passed several resolutions that recognize transgender persons, that they should be guaranteed the right to recognition along with a full range of rights and freedom by the state, primarily because they suffer aggravated forms of violence and targets of extrajudicial killings because of their gender identity, and they require special protection against torture. Much debate has to be surrounded by it, because internationally we cannot come up to a common consensus regarding all these countries following one thing. So let us take up a few questions. I think, Nitin sir, can you take up the question answer round?
So, thank you, ma'am. So, as Rajat sir is like referring to the National Human Rights Framework, so I'm coming to this point, and as very beautifully explained by Shelja ma'am, that regional human rights framework is also instrumental, or we can say is also augmenting the international human rights framework. But at the same time, Rajat sir, like you were saying, it is the replication of the universal, or the we can say international human rights principle. I do agree with you, but at the same time, it is more or less complementary in nature. It is not at all purely integrationist. Reason being, keeping in view the regional aspirations of different continents or the different people, we have with us different set of rights under different regional conventions, be it like African Charter, be it like European Charter. And even though the card you have like initiated in this particular thing, like the whole regional human rights, whole transgender rights can be incorporated, or how we can be able to extract the transgender rights from this convention. So what the another sense type of inquiry is with me also, that how this regional human rights framework is applicable, or how effective this regional human rights framework is effective in the South Asian countries. So this particular query is this particular thing I want to know, or we can I must request Shelja ma'am to apprise us or to shed light on this important aspect, how South Asian communities can better or effectively mitigate this issue of discrimination vis-a-vis transgender rights in the light of the regional human rights framework, which the Dr. Rajat Banerjee sir has pointed out. Shelja ma'am, please enlighten us.
Thank you so much, Neetan sir. Thank you so much, Sumitra ma'am. And thank you, Rajat sir, for this very profound academic and discoursed question. right? Now, as I said, that Megatron International Human Rights Instruments, so we all know that's why I referred first to the United Nations Organization and League of Nations, and then Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and then it's human rights, other civil and social economic frameworks, ICCPR and ICESR, International Covenant on Civil Rights and International Covenant on Economic and Social Rights. And now that's the universal framework, right? And it's a good thing. We need it. That's why it's there. Law, whether it is national or international, I think the law is going to be there, even if Karl Marx criticizes it, that law, or even Mahatma Gandhi, Karl Marx says that the law is a product of a bourgeois, right? And law will always, serve to the bourgeois. I do not agree with that. After my political science background and studying Karl Marx for years and decades, law is there because protection is lacking, because there's a lack of space that everybody inhabits, right? That is what Rig Veda said in the first page. Everybody inhabits earth, air, water, space, ethereal. Everybody should have a voice. Everybody have fulfilled justice and dharma. That's all, right? Rights will then start flowing it, and then we can exercise it, right? But that got dissuaded in India also. That got diluted in India also. We know that, right? And that is why the problems come up in everywhere, right? Now, as far as the regional treaties and instruments have come up, I think Europe is going forward and moving forward. I am being researching for one last week on these regional treaties on transgender in the Europe, right? Particularly the one treaty, or the one if I cannot favor anything one, but then if you really want to ask me, my favorable is the Convention on the European Human Rights, Council of Europe, and the European Court of Human Rights, right? If you see the European fraternity, it's coming, see, 17th and 18th century, 12th to 17th century was the rights of man, right? And that is why the French Revolution and American Declaration come. 18th century and 19th century belong to the woman, 18, 19, and middle 20, right? 1994, 1995, Mrs. Bill Clinton was saying, Hillary Clinton, that women rights are also political rights. Personal is political. And the later part of 20th century and 21st century belongs to the transgender persons. That what I research and I get, right, in the Europe, even in India and South Asia also. But South Asia having an experience or dealing with transgenders or having their rights is ancient, is 4,000, 5,000 years ago, right? But then building up political legal fraternity will take time on the lines of European Convention or Intercommission of America, or even Africa. Because Nepal again, 2015, Nepal is again is coming new with constitutional government. Although their constitution, I wrote a paper on Nepal 2015 constitution, beautifully described there all the human rights of everybody. But Nepal, Sri Lanka, Pakistan, right, have other political and security problems, challenges also to deal with. India can play a formidable part, a powerful part here, bringing a solidarity, building it. SARC framework can be used rather than building some new framework. South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation, I think 1 year or next 10 years, 1 decade, as they used to do in when Mrs. Indira Gandhi was there. 1982 to 1992 was the year of women, the decade of women, right? Now they should have a decade of transgender, and India can play a part. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. I think this is what I understood, but this is not the full picture.
Very well answered, Shalja ma'am, and you've covered a major part of it. However, I would like to focus on the Article 26 of the ICCPR, which prohibits discrimination and gives equal protection to all the persons before the law, has been interpreted to include transgender persons under the category of sex. Now, Article 9 of ICCPR has interpreted that the rights to liberty, is available to everyone, which includes all the persons of LGBTQIA plus identity. And Article 9 of ICESCR has been interpreted to recognize the right to health of the transgender persons as a vulnerable group that requires positive state protection. So similarly, there is the Committee on the Anti-Torture Convention, which requires special measures to protect transgender persons from torture under Article 2, as well as to provide effective redressal mechanism for transgender victims of torture under Article 14 of this convention. We need to understand globally whether we can accommodate this third gender as equally we have included the other genders. Now, next question is for Monica ma'am. Monica ma'am, as you know that right now we have a totally dedicated cell to protect the transgender rights at Amity Law School, Noida, under the aegis of Amity Legal Aid and Literacy Committee. So ma'am, we have a series of welfare activities which we have planned under the cell. Like we have planned to organize online awareness programs on the rights of transgender persons. So there can be on short online courses. We have also planned for guest lectures, and we have also planned for certain workshops and colloquiums. Ma'am, is there any way in which the Legal Aid Society of the Law School at Jammu University and Amity Legal Aid and Literacy Committee can collaborate together for the cause of the transgenders in our welfare activities? Over to you, Monica ma'am.
Surely I'll be talking to them about this. I'll talk to my director. If it will be possible, I'll get back to you, Sumitra.
Yes, the thing that I had on my mind was an online basic course on the transgender issues, because this is also promoted by the ministry. So I think if us, you and the ministry collaborate together, I think we can come up with something now.
Okay, that's good. I'll see to it. I'll talk to them and get back to you.
Thank you, ma'am. And now the last question is for Rajat sir. Rajat sir, this is what the ministry has promulgated. Garima Greh, which is the shelter homes for the transgender persons. But don't you think that apart from Garima Greh, now because in India and across the globe, we now talk about public-private partnerships. So can something be done in the line of Garima Greh? And can we move forward to provide shelter homes for the transgenders? What do you think will be the different stakeholders, and what do you think should be our way forward? Rajat Banerjee, sir.
Yeah, this is a very critical question covering the discourse on transgender rights. And when we had referred to the international laws, especially the operation of international laws, when I had invoked the horizontal approach internationally actually involves the transnational corporations, the private actors, the non-state, even the non-state actors, as well as the non-governmental organizations, the parastatal organizations. So, of course, the present initiative which has been taken, the parastatal organizations, the non-governmental organizations, they must have a role, an active role in the process of dispensation of justice and taking this initiative forward. So, of course, because we are creating awareness through some mode, through this platform and through some other platform, but without the active connivance, without the active support of the non-governmental organizations as well as some of the private partners. So as you have rightly indicated, that private public partnerships need to be there in place in order to make these initiatives a success. And not only that, there is some form of corporate social responsibility. So we find an amended Company Act 2013, wherein reference has been made to corporate social responsibility. So even big corporates may be made socially responsible or legally responsible for any negligent acts, and the corporate social responsibility framework may be extended to transgenders as well. And this is so what we require. Today our focus of discussion was on international discourses and international laws and legal instruments operating at the international level, but it is both the initiatives must be both at the transnational, national, as well as at the international levels, and the role of all including the private players in the process of dispensation of justice, as well as facilitation of initiatives, the initiative that you have just referred to. Their role is quintessentially important. Thank you so much.
Yes, we have actually two last questions. So one is that, I told you that just 3 to 4 days back, I was in the ministry and there were so many questions that were coming up. And one question still remained unanswered, and that is when a transgender person goes to a different country, say, for example, as Shailja ma'am had covered in her address, if a transgender person goes to some European part and there is discrimination against the transgender person, what is the instrument, what is the machinery there to approach the police, or what should that person do if a person is facing a workplace harassment or different kinds of discrimination, which is liable under the it's an offense as per the act in our country? But what should that person do? What should be the first step of that person? Shailja ma'am and Rajat sir.
Thank you so much, Sumitra ma'am, for that question. Now, for example, if it is a Council of Europe or let's say European Union, right? Now they have one common, we all know, solidarity. They have bring together the laws, the society together, and the intensity or the gravity of the solidarity is so much so that they rather than being an individual country like Latvia, Lithuania, or Switzerland or France, they also at the very same time share that commonness, that oneness with each other, and they have this idea that there should be one Europe, right? Apart from distinct nations and frameworks. Now, if there is a regional agreement and then Council of Europe or any other European treaty or agreement is available, or European Union, then and the person is traveling, let's say from France to Germany, and both the countries have been the members of the similar regional front, then they can voice it to the country which they are, they find themselves in. They are traveling as a traveler, as an immigrant, or whatever educational capacity or professional capacity, and they are being discriminated because absence of discrimination, I haven't said that, absence of discrimination, that is why we have those agreements. Because if we have reached Swaraj, if we have achieved Ram Rajya, then there is no probably may not be or a lesser need for law, right? So discrimination or oppression is still very much there, and not just transgenders, but against people from other jurisdictions also. Minority jurisdiction is very much found there, or against blacks or browns, as it is being labeled in the discourse. But having said that, there's a discrimination and it is being brought to the forefront, the person can go to the police, to the enforcement agencies. There are examples I found in my research that people from different jurisdictions, though they are from Europe, and when they are in different countries of Europe, they have brought the incidents to the primary agencies like police, and the police have taken cognizance and have reported it to their further channels of enforcement. But one thing I have found, as always, is that there has to be, decentralization of everything, right? International regional agreement is there. The government may know that, but a policeman may not know that, right? Or the ordinary or the person transgender who have been discriminated may not know that, that the other country can take a part, can partake, and can hear his oppression. So there have to be coming from vertical, there have to be, dilution to everybody. The local, the ground level should also, that is why awareness and knowledge. So that is what I have to say here.
The question, let me allow to answer it, Professor Nitan. Actually, this is a very, very intriguing question that Dr. Sumitra Singh has asked, and this is a problem not only with transgenders. Myself, when I had traveled to Turkey, I had to attend one of the important conferences of American Society of Comparative Law, I had myself faced some amount of discrimination during that event. So for the main problem with discrimination being faced, whether it is faced by me or by any other person whatsoever, is that discrimination is very subjective. And international law, I believe Shailaja madam would also agree that international law is said to be in the vanishing point of jurisprudence. And there is no prima facie answer to a sublime question like this in international law. And of course, when you are referring to Europe, so a transgender person traveling to Europe and his or her rights getting violated over there, of course, there in Europe, Europe is possibly the one of the best protectors of rights. So you have the ECHR, the European Convention of Human Rights, read with the provisions of the European Code of Human Rights, and you have the Charter of Fundamental Rights operating in Europe. And as Shailaja Ma'am had rightly pointed out, that the Council of Europe is very pinpointing with reference to the rights jurisprudence. However, when it is a violation of a single right of a single person, because international law also invokes statehood. So generally, under the circumstances, I am giving I'm putting the point in a very pragmatic form. And I do not think that a person, including any of us, facing any form of discrimination, whether it is racial or religious-based discrimination or even caste-based discrimination, I do not think that there is any remedy, there is any immediate remedy, at least, of course, at the international level.
So, right, sir, especially you're very much right that international law is a vanishing point of jurisprudence, as Holland has rightly put it. And no doubt, sir, there are a number of questions to which straight answer is not possible. And likewise, we can see that nowadays we have a number of other issues like refugees and transgender and refugees, transgender and the rights of the asylum seekers. So that number of things are coming up, and probably with the passage of time, due to the international human rights framework as well as the regional human rights framework as well as the national legislations that we are having, we will be able to build a very inclusive and peaceful world for everybody, including transgenders. So now we have with us our friend and our best colleague, Dr. Rupinder sir. So sir is waiting since long to pay vote of thanks to the attendees and our esteemed panelists. So now I welcome Mr. Rupinder Singh sir for the vote of thanks. Please, sir.
Thank you, Nitin sir, to give me this opportunity to give the vote of thanks to the speakers on the today's webinar. Indeed, the topic which has been set out, there's an international perspective and the Transgenders Act 2019. Certainly, this act draw a lot from those international treaty obligations, as has been mentioned out by the fellow speakers in the today's webinar. So it's indeed a privilege to deliver the vote of thanks, and we as a institute, as a university, and the Legal Aid Society in particular, or as an advocate of a transgender community, we are highly thankful to sensitize us. The YouTube video which is going to be prepared of this particular session, shared, circulated with the students subsequently, certainly will be of will be an enriched content available on the different aspects of the transgenders. So I, on behalf of Amity Law School Noida, Amity University Uttar Pradesh, and the Legal Aid Society of the Amity Law School Noida, first would like to thank Dr. Monica Naran, Associate Professor and Coordinator of PG Department in Human Rights and Duties Education, the Law School of University of Jammu. Ma'am, the words of wisdom which you have shared that are actually quite beneficial for the society. Thank you for managing the time for us, and to be a participant or to being an advocate on this particular theme about the rights of the transgender. In this series, I would also further like to thank Dr. Vijay Avana, Advocate, Supreme Court of India. Sir, the discourse and the thoughts which we will put up for the today's topic will certainly will create a new momentum in the rights and the protections of a transgender. We are also thankful to Dr. Shubha Vas, Senior Assistant Professor, the Law School, University of Jammu, for her contributions and the word of wisdom which she has put across throughout the webinars to the target audience. I believe the repository of the words which is going to be, which has been delivered by you, is going to be of utmost help to the students, society, and the researchers at large. Now, I take privilege to deliver or to thanks to my fellow colleagues, Dr. Rajat Banerjee and Ms. Shelja Fasla. Rajat sir and the Shelja ma'am both are the expert of international law. They are teaching the international law, and certainly the aspects which has been covered by them, that what has been mandated under the international law and the same has been incorporated under the Transgender Act, or the gaps which has been identified by them, is certainly going to help the community at large, the students and the researchers in particular. So thank you very much for all of you to join us for this today's webinar. I believe that this sort of collaborations or the cooperation which we are making for the work, and we are becoming the voice of the transgenders, is certainly a very good cause in itself. So thank you very much to be present throughout this webinar with us.
Thank you, Rupinder sir, for heartwarming words there.
Yeah, thank you, Rupendra sir, for presenting the hearty vote of thanks. It was totally spoken from the heart. Thank you, everybody, all the panelists who joined us today. Thank you, Professor Dr. Aditya Tomar sir, our Joint HOI and Additional Director, Amity Law School, Noida, for motivating us to open the Transgender Rights Protection Cell. Now we have a totally dedicated cell. And if anybody facing any problem regarding the transgender persons, or if you yourself have any challenge regarding it, please meet us in our satellite office that is located at gate number 2A of the university premises. You can also note down our number, that is 0120 439 2807. I repeat, 0120 439 2807. Also, that this was the 9th webinar in the series of the webinars. And before departing from this portal, I would like to reiterate that this dedicated cell of ours at the Amity Legal Aid and Literacy Committee will work in collaboration with National Institute of Social Defense, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. And to know more about the awareness programs on the transgender protection rights, please log on to socialjustice.nec.in, transgender.dosje.gov.in and nisd.gov.in, and also please regularly visit Amity Legal Aid and Literacy Committee. We are stationed on the 4th floor of I3 block at Amity University premises. Thank you so much, everybody, for being a part of this webinar. In the words of our Honorable Founder President, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan sir, goodbye and God bless everybody. Bye-bye, everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thanks. Thanks a lot.
Bye, ma'am.